Have you ever logged into your checking account just before fueling up? I used to do this all the time. I remember back in college, I was literally living paycheck to paycheck, stressing over every dollar. And that was around the time that I found Dave Ramsey's principles, his baby steps, and that's also when everything began to change for me financially. Now, I know some people say his advice is a little out of date, but here's the truth. Financial freedom isn't about a high credit score. It's about the freedom to live a life on your terms. Hey, I'm Riley. I'm an Air Force officer and a massive productivity nerd. And around here on this channel, I like to talk about productivity tips and tricks, but not for other people's priorities. It's about being clear on your own priorities, your own life, your own values. And to live according to those, you have to have control of your finances, which is why I'm talking more about money on this channel, which includes, of course, Dave Ramsey. Now, of course, Dave Ramsey is the getting out of debt guy, and that's really the process that I used. And really, the getting out of debt, the most challenging part in the first place is actually doing a budget to begin with so that you're actually telling your own money where to go in the first place. It's like literally as you go through his baby steps, the first one's saving $1,000 for a baseline early on emergency fund. No, it's not supposed to be for like your entire emergency fund. It's that first step of discipline to save $1,000 because that discipline is what most people don't have. The majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and could not cover a $1,000 expense if it came up without using credit cards. Then in step 2, you pay off your debt smallest to largest. That's the snowball effect. And you do it not because it's the mathematically correct way of the highest interest rate. No, you do it because it's about the behavior. It's about actually getting the small wins. That's why the process works for normal people, not for theoretical financial nerds on TikTok. So like the going through the snowball and then fully funding your emergency fund, those are just the first 3 steps, the very foundations of financial discipline that can set you up for success long term. And that's exactly what I did. And the most important tool that gave me was just the practical means of doing a budget and actually sticking to it. Like actually tracking when you spend money on something, being aware of where you spent the money. It's a crazy idea, I know. But it's interesting because like now I'm well into my Air Force career and now as I've faced, and I've talked about it on the channel a little bit, as I've faced some really difficult questions about like when the right time to transition from military service and when's the right time to like really pursue my own creative goals and my own career goals as they, service never lasts forever for anyone, no matter how long you stay in the military. And so what Dave Ramsey's principles have allowed is sort of is really the financial freedom to be forced to make decisions about your career, your job, your work, based on having to pay a bunch of freaking payments every month. So like my dream is becoming a creator, a coach, someone who's fully self-employed. But like that's a scary thing and that's a difficult and challenging thing. It's like the journey I'm chronicling on this YouTube channel right now. But my ability to do that is going to be much, much, much more accessible if I'm disciplined with my finances in the first place. And that's why this stuff is so important for you watching this channel right now. I want to be specific on like how the baby steps affected me. I was gradually indoctrinated into the Dave Ramsey cult. And that is like, I think I got the first principle first. Like at end of high school, into college, I was kind of scared straight enough. I heard enough of like phone calls calling into the radio show, very entertaining sometimes, but like just racking up thousands and tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands in student loan debt and how like financially crippling it was. And that was like the big decision that I'm very glad that I did, which is pursue an Air Force scholarship so that I wouldn't have to take out student loans. That became like a huge goal of mine. And a lot of that was because of listening to Dave Ramsey. I just knew I didn't want like student loans wrapped around my neck for the entire, like from the time I'm 24 to 34, which is like what's normal for most people. And that was kind of it. I always stayed out of debt. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I certainly wasn't very disciplined with budgeting back then. Like while I stayed out of debt and stayed away from credit cards, that didn't mean I was very good about budgeting or saving, which is like the whole next steps. And it really wasn't until I was getting ready to get married a few years ago where I like had to actually be like, I got to get serious about saving money now. And to do that, I gotta actually do this whole budgeting thing. I guess I'm gonna finally get out the spreadsheet and do the math. And spoiler alert, mainly because I needed to save for the wedding ring. And I was like, well, I guess I gotta put together a chunk of cash. No more just spending all of my paycheck, because it was exciting. Like, I remember being a brand new lieutenant and finally having a regular government paycheck and living stipend. And like, I suddenly had financial wiggle room to travel and like eat out and like all these other things that I wasn't able to do as much in college. So I think it was finally that time when I got serious, where I finally returned to the Dave Ramsey principles and realized, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save the emergency fund, and then I'm going to start being disciplined with my budgeting so that I can actually save for a wedding ring and like replace my ancient Nissan 200SX with 200,000 miles on it. Like, all right, I guess I have to get serious now. But also, I get it. Like, I know as a self-described Dave Ramsey kid, I get and I understand there's a lot of criticism, especially in like the financial YouTube space. I watch Caleb Hammer, really interesting, like financial audit. I've seen Graham Stephan's videos, and they're like the finance nerds that don't like some of the aspects of Dave's principles that are not based on pure math. They're based on like human behavior. Honestly, and maybe it's my own experience, but I think that's why I think that it works. It's simple. I think the Dave Ramsey baby steps have this simplicity and approachability and like decades of proof that they've helped the average American escape the average American experience with debt, which is having tens and tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt and student loan debt. Like, there's a track record with the Dave Ramsey baby steps, and they work because they're so simple. I think that's hugely underestimated in the world of like finance YouTube. And really, I think this is where I get like really passionate about it. Because I have good friends, I have family members that have just gotten trapped in the vortex, in the cycle of consumer debt, of not even just realizing how much it impacts you, because it does. It impacts your ability to like get after the life that you want. Like, that's the whole thing I talk about on this YouTube channel. And I know people who are forced to make decisions about their life, about their career, about their job, about their relationships, based on being trapped financially. It's like the whole idea is the borrower is slave to the lender. This is a financial kind of servitude that's the norm in America. There are major corporations and dudes in suits and fancy suits and high-rise buildings, for these mega finance corporations who are very happy that the average American is tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt and student loans debt, because it helps fund their lifestyle. The banks have bigger buildings than like any other industry, and that's wise. They spend billions of dollars marketing and tricking people into thinking that like the cool perks of their credit cards and the airline miles are going to pay for their vacation. I've heard so many people who talk about like how their Amex card gave them a free 5-star hotel for a 10-night family vacation. And that might be the case in an individual example, but you have to actually look at the numbers. And so this is where like the whole Dave Ramsey baby steps are very focused on the behavior, because the whole idea that getting your life together financially is 80% behavior, 20% math. That's what he says all the time. All right, here's where I'm going to throw some math at you, because the numbers of the average of the majority of Americans who use credit cards sustain a balance. And anytime you sustain a balance, that interest that you're now paying to the credit card company instantly evaporates any of the airline miles or freaking perks that you have otherwise. And I get it. You're watching this right now and you're like, but Riley, unlike all of those other idiots, I personally pay off my credit card every month. It's just like I have all the money in my bank account end of the month. I just pay it off. To which I say, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you're spending exactly as much money as you would if it were coming out of your checking account. I'm lying. I don't think you are at all. That's where I think that if people spent the amount of time and energy on like creating and sticking to a budget that aligns with the life that they want and they value, instead of just being on kind of financial autopilot, if they spend the same amount of freaking energy on that as they do like calculating the number of Amex points they have to book a vacation in one of 3 locations that you can do, like, then you'll be financially prosperous. Most of those people don't even have a budget. They don't even track where their money goes. And so it's very difficult for me to believe that that you're like taking your finances seriously, which is the whole point of this video, because you have to take your finances seriously to build a life that's in alignment with your own values. Otherwise you're trapped. But like, that's what you should spend your time and effort on. It's actually creating a budget and sticking to it, actually being intentional with your money. And that doesn't mean being miserly. That doesn't mean like saving every penny and never spending. Like, no, it's about taking care of long-term investing, but then also like actually budgeting. A crazy idea, your own cash out of your own checking account, paying for your own vacation, and having exactly zero ties to a mega finance corporation to bequeathing an unknown number of credit card points for an unknown number of airline miles converted through an unknown process to book a... No. This is why I'm so passionate about just being intentional with your money. And that's why I think the Dave Ramsey principles work. The thing I talk about on this channel is like, the phrase I like to use is finding your Death Star. Financial freedom is directly tied to that concept. Finding that thing that you can give to the world, like your own greatest purpose. I mean, that takes breathing room. That takes like experiencing life. It actually takes some trial and errors, some trying different jobs, some experiencing different relationships, living in different places. Like, these are the things that you need to... that you want to have the flexibility to do to discover your own greatest contribution in this world before we all kick rocks. If you're buried in debt, you can't do that. So, in summary, Riley's a giant freaking Dave Ramsey kid / nerd. Also, the baby steps are awesome and they work. Also, like, the takeaway is being intentional with your money, because financial freedom is what can give you time freedom. It's what can give you location freedom. And it's what gives you the breathing room to discover your greatest contribution, to find your Death Star. All right, I'm out. That's it for me. If you're not on the newsletter, first link in the description below. But until next time, may the force be with you, always.